Welcome to episode 2, Tom LoBianco Reports. Today is Tuesday, August 26th, the year of our Lord 2025. I'm Tom LoBianco. Today we're going to be talking about the occupation of DC. But what does that mean exactly? What kind of occupation are we talking about here? Is this a bunch of gutter punks, street punks, people that listen to Black Flag, hanging out outside banks? Is this Occupy Wall Street? Or is this some kind of North Korean military parade? The answer is quite a bit different. And as always, if you're a loyal viewer, a loyal reader of 24/7 News, you just started watching here every day, Monday through Friday, noon on Substack Live, and then replaying at 8 p.m. on Political Voices Network, you know that we're about the nuance. We follow the reporting. The reporting rarely matches the hyperbole. So if you're watching live today, please make sure you could drop in your questions as we go along. Rollins Band, Ian Walters, producer Ian is here as well. Ian rightly notes Rollins Band is a classic. As you're watching today, if you're here with us live at noon every day, every weekday, you can drop in some questions as we go along. I'll take a look at them. And you can also catch the replay at 8 p.m. on Political Voices Network on YouTube. So let's get to it. According to the President of the United States of America, Washington is a crime-ravaged shithole. As somebody who lives here in the suburbs of Washington and does occasionally go downtown, sometimes to the Capitol, occasionally through Union Station, where a number of National Guard are stationed, I can tell you I have no fucking idea what he's talking about. Maybe we live in different cities. Maybe we work in different places. But that's fine. That's pretty normal for him. It's pretty standard to state things which are not based in reality, whatever. What is real is the way that he is handling it, okay? As we all know, he has taken over the local police department, the local police force, all right? He is sending in National Guard into Washington, which sounds like, as of now, basically a permanent deployment, okay? We'll see. We got to see. The latest escalation from him, well, again, we have to watch whether these things are actual escalations, is allowing the National Guard to carry weapons with them. Okay. So how strange is this really? It has the look of being dictatorial. Here's a good question from Lindsay. Hey, Lindsay. Other than Democratic-led cities, curious who's next in the Trump occupation. It's only blue states right now. That is glaring in its politics. Now, that could change, but right now they're only targeting places where there are Democratic elected officials. And again, highly political. It's not strange to have National Guard deployed for emergencies, aka actual emergencies. All right. We had this after Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated during the Rodney King, the riots in LA in the 90s. Desegregation, the integration of the schools in the 50s, Little Rock. Okay. Even going all the way back to the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln, before there was a National Guard. So it's not abnormal to have military, the National Guard, deployed in emergencies. Okay, that is not strange. All right. Also, I would note it is legal what Trump has done in effectively taking over. I should note, not completely taking over, effectively on 30 days, could be extended, taking over the local police. Okay. Strategic Jane notes, DC does not rate in the top 10 violent crimes cities. Correct. As as I noted at the top here, our president, for whatever reason, is not rooted in reality. Maybe he spends too much time on Twitter. Maybe he doesn't get a complete 8 hours of rest every night. Who knows? Whatever he's saying is not correct. Okay, but we do know his actions. All right. Um. So speaking of Trump, let's get to it. Let's hear from him what he had to say here. He did a police ride along. Okay. Years ago, I did a police ride along. They're really cool. All right. With real police. All right. To actually see what, real policing is like. I did one of these back in high school. Super interesting. Out in Baltimore County, the suburb of Baltimore, where I'm from. There's no T in Baltimore, in case you didn't know. Uh, and it's really fascinating to see what police get called out for. All right. I vaguely recall there was a dispute over a dog taking craps in the neighbor's yard. And you know what? You never know what you're going to get called out for. um, Maybe Trump's done a real ride along before. This one seemed performative. Okay. Highly performative. All right. And of course, as he noted, he said that he has ended all the crime in Washington. And I wrote this up in the show notes, which I'm reading from here. If you don't already subscribe to 24site.news, do so up there. And every morning, just before the show starts here at noon, you'll get this email with, it's basically my script. It's what I'm reading from. It's what me and Ian are writing back and forth, looking into as we do the reporting to find out what's really happening. So Trump said he stopped all the crime. No more crime. Everything's cool. Kristi Noem can leave gold or whatever in her handbags and not worrying about it getting, snatched by whoever, anywhere in Washington. Time is over, according to the White House. Of course, that's not true either. That's incorrect. And if you do witness something, call the real police. Okay, don't call the White House. You'll probably get a reality TV producer instead going out there instead of some real law enforcement. Okay. Corey Emberson here. Parents, don't be like Fred Trump Sr. Please tell your kids you love them. Yes, always. Yes, parents. Yeah, it has real world effects. Lindsay Haig writes here in the chat. Love that the criminal in chief is lecturing about crime. So look, we know crime is real. Crime is still happening. Okay, I'm going to pull something here from NBC4 here in DC, and thank God we have a robust local media environment. Tough as it is, all right, even with what's his name, the Venetian wedding, the bald guy, Jeff Bezos, going south on journalism, all right, still have a robust local media environment, all right. This is interesting from NBC4, all right, August 19th. It's some DC leaders say they don't see improvement in crime amid National Guard deployment. If you're a local out here in DC, you know where most of the crime occurs. All right. But the National Guard have been sent to the mall, the National Mall, Union Station, all the way down to the Capitol, Georgetown, tourist areas, which are not high crime environments. As NBC4 notes, we got to go to Ward 8. Okay. Shooting in 2700 block of Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, Southeast. So Southeast, if you want to work on crime, that's where you need to deploy. Okay. Here we go. Lindsay Haig. Yes. Homicide in Southeast. Southeast continues to be a tough area for Washington. All right. And you absolutely could, if you're serious about this, absolutely could work on the high crime areas as opposed to the tourist areas. All right. Here's NBC4. 2 Ward 8 commissioners tell News 4 they feel the federal and National Guard presence is not having an effect on crime, that they would expect a deployment from such a large number of people. I do believe we're up over 1,000 National Guard at this point. Good point from Ruth Clark here. Ruth says, was it wrong to bring in the National Guard when Kathy Hochul, the New York governor, did it in New York City? Good point. As we noted here at the top, it's not abnormal to call in the National Guard, all right, especially when you have an emergency. This is from Gothamist. Folks, if you're with us live here on Substack at noon, you should be able to hop in. I think you can hop into the chat and click on that link. If not, I'll send it around, the one from Ruth Clark. Corey Anderson notes, very good point. It was the governor, not the president of the United States, calling in the National Guard. Good point there, too. This feels very much like what happened in Los Angeles, all right, where National Guard were called in. They were doing arrests of undocumented. They're helping, all right, while ICE did these sweeping arrests of undocumented immigrants, but not going into the gang areas, okay? So here's NBC4, okay? We should know Anacostia, long been a tough area, okay? Here's locals. This is from WTOP. And if you're here in DC, and actually now, you can listen anywhere, but of course, all the DC locals know WTOP is the news station for a very long time from the glass enclosed nerve center of WTOP. Quote, it makes a lot of people feel nervous. Anacostia residents react to federal police, National Guard on DC streets. All right. Ruth Clark notes in D.C., however, the National Guard is under the permanent control of the president. That is correct. That is correct. Here's a quote from somebody they say name's KB with the D.C. Alliance on Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue. Well, over here, they pull up in like 7 to 10 cars and are pulling people over at random for no apparent reason at all, asking to search people's cars. People are coming home from work, going to work, or just trying to enjoy their day, and they're being harassed and accosted by the police. I don't know if it's too much of them at one time coming out. I know they're cleaning up the streets, though. I'll give them that, said another Ward 8, Washington Ward 8 resident named Robert. They don't give the last name here. The way they have said it up makes a lot of people nervous. Okay. So clearly, Trump is leaning into this. And as I note in today's newsletter, a lot of this has to do with the politics of it. All right. You'll shock to find a president or any elected official who is a politician, and every elected official is a politician, practicing politics. Okay. Look, we're heading into the midterm elections. So we're going to do a little dichotomy, right? We got the on the ground, what's really happening on the ground in Washington. We have the strategizing. All right. Everybody's constantly running for reelection. Trump himself is worried about what's going to happen in the 2026 midterm elections, which we are in right now. All right. We are in the middle of it. School is back for most places around the country. I'm sure there's still a few districts that do after Labor Day. Summer's over. All right. We are in the middle of the midterm elections. Crime, the perception of crime, is a tried and true tactic from Trump. And over the years, Republicans, but especially Trump, as I write in here, the immediate reaction to the murder of George Floyd in 2020 and the protests and riots, there absolutely were riots, but majority peaceful protests that happened too, was to portray everything as a war that we are in. Okay. I used to watch Tucker Carlson back then during the 2020 election, COVID lockdown, back when he was on Fox News. And if you watched him, it made it sound like we were in the middle of a raging war in this country. Now, of course, there was not a war, but that was the presentation. All right. That was the way things were being presented. Was there a lot of violence? Yes. It undeniable that buildings were set on fire, people were throwing stuff, looting. All right. There absolutely was a lot of violence. Not a war, though. Not at all. So why talk about this stuff? Well, clearly, strategically, and I know this from my reporting on Trump over the past decade, and we've heard this from his advisors over the years. He sees a benefit in this and using it against Democrats. All right. So this is it's as much as it is a real thing, it's also political messaging. Okay. All right. Here's I'll read some comments here coming in. That's here's Suzanne Ferguson uh, p- uh, putting military on the streets definitely decrease crime, but honest, hardworking citizens are getting harassed. Great point. Now, something I want to bring up, which I did not write in the newsletter, which I want to mention here. There are these checkpoints, these ICE checkpoints, and I want to talk a little bit about here in a second about the difference between the National Guard presence and the difference between the ICE actions, right, the immigration enforcement actions that are going on. And if you're a regular viewer, reader of 24site.news, number one, if you're here and you haven't signed up yet, please do. You can get it right at the top of your screen, 24site.news. Subscribe, help support independent journalism as we track all this down and cut through the hyperbole, make heads and tails of what's going on. My friend Pablo Manriquez, who writes the newsletter Migrant Insider, has been reporting on the immigration raids and attempted immigration raids here in Washington. And recently, I think it was earlier today, there was actually a checkpoint, a police immigration style checkpoint set up on North Capitol Avenue at Michigan Avenue. Which, if you don't live in Washington, you don't know where that is. For a lot of folks who commute in from the suburbs, here's the diamond. All right, I live up here in Silver Spring. If you commute down into DC through North Capitol Avenue, it's right up here. Kind of a tough little area, northeast as you're coming into the city. All right, and they set up is it military style checkpoint? I don't know. I don't know if it's military style, but they set up a checkpoint, definitely. Heavy presence. Now, that's real. That's not performative. All right. That's not parading. It's not going through the forest areas. Okay. Um, Connie writes, "Why do you think the mainstream media is not showing protests like it did back then?" Good question. I don't know that one. That sounds like something that we might want to explore. The media relationship with what's happening on the ground in a future episode. Good question there, Connie. Um, as we were doing the research for this, Ian Walters and I, and please find Ian on Substack. If you go to our Substack 24 Site News, you can sign up for him. He has great observations, just really a depth of knowledge of what's going on here. I was thinking a lot about back in 2008 when the city, Kathy Lanier, the old Washington police chief, actually did set up military style checkpoints, all right, of the local police. All right. This is not federal police. This is not police. This is not federal military turned inwards, which raises some serious questions of the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878. This was local police. And there was a debate back then. They talked about this. And there was a big debate over Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable search and seizure. This is in the Trinidad neighborhood of Washington in Northeast, there was a massive surge of violence, shootings, homicides, actual violence, I should note, not perceived violence. There was a real surge in violent crime back then, and local police set up these military-style checkpoints. And there was a big debate over the Fourth Amendment, constitutional protections back then. And one of the places that actually came out in support of this, we'll go deep here. If you can see that, Washington Post. Washington Post, back when it was the liberal editorial board, not conservative editorial board as it is recently, liberal, came out in support of the military-style checkpoints. Okay, here's the Washington Post editorial, June 19th, 2008. Critics of the district's decision to use police checkpoints have reason to question the practice's constitutionality and wonder about its long-term effectiveness. What's wrong is to play down the violence plaguing these troubled neighborhoods. Mayor Adrian Fenty and Police Chief Kathy Lanier are correct to see the crime problem in Northeast as a true public emergency that warrants new thinking and bold action. A burst of silence several weekends ago, 7 people killed and 3 wounded in 9 hours, prompted the district to put into place a neighborhood checkpoint program that had been under development for 2 months. For 6 days at random times, police operated checkpoints in the hard-hit Trinidad neighborhood in the city's 5th police district because police had concluded that people who didn't live in the neighborhood were driving into the area and shooting from vehicles. The checkpoints were aimed at turning away motorists who had no legitimate purpose there. Police said more than 700 vehicles were allowed in. 46 were turned away. There were no shootings. There's a dispute over whether the operation violated Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable searches and seizures. There's some merit to the claim that police were using the checkpoints for general law enforcement, which could render them unconstitutional. But city attorneys make a convincing argument that because the program's goal was the physical safety of the roadways, it passes constitutional muster. Indeed, they liken the Trinidad stops to sobriety checkpoints, which have been upheld by the Supreme Court. Very fascinating. One of the things that we talked about yesterday on the first episode of Tom LoBianco Reports regarding Trump, the 22nd Amendment, and his claims that he might not leave in 2028. And I urge you to go check that out if you missed it. Okay, you can actually go see it on the Political Voices Network. I sent around the YouTube video in this morning's email as well. And this is something that Ian and I have talked about extensively, is not a lot of this is new. What's new is the extremism, the branding of this. Okay, there's not an awful lot new in the interplay of the feds and the local. Okay, what's different is how it's enacted. Okay, that's and I for lack of a better analogy, I always think of Trump and his politics and his hyperbole as Spinal Tap. All right, this one goes up to 11. Okay, look, it's always turned to 11. Did it actually change anything? No, of course not. You'd have to go into the actual amp to do that. But there's a number on there that says 11. You might fool a few people. Okay, it's not the it's. All right, so this one goes up to 11. It's kind of stuck there. Maybe they broke the dial. All right. Here's what I'm going to be watching for. And as I note here, when we do these, part of our thinking in launching this show, which is every day, Monday through Friday, live noon on Substack, and then replay at 8 p.m. on Political Voices Network on YouTube, is every day is a story. One story. Some stories we come back to. This is one of those stories that we're going to be following. All right. It's big. Some of this is absolutely unprecedented. It has the look and feel of something that could be dictatorial or autocratic. But in practice, doesn't seem to be that way. Okay. So we're going to be digging in on it. And as I mentioned earlier, seeing as there's a political component to this as we head into the 2026 midterms, pretty good sense that the White House is going to keep hammering on this. So we will be revisiting this. Okay. If you're watching live, all right, thanks everybody. Suzanne, Corey, Ruth, a number of other folks here for writing into the chat. Reminder, you can also, if you subscribe, 24site.news/subscribe, sign up, get the newsletter in the morning. You can just reply to the newsletter as it goes out and write questions. All right, we'll take a look at them. If you tell me and Ian to go fuck ourselves, I'm probably not going to use that question on the air. All right. But if you got good questions like the ones I've been seeing today, we'll take a look at them and we'll incorporate it into our reporting. Okay. So I'm Tom LoBianco, editor and co-founder of 24 Site News. Thanks for being here. All right. Sign up 24site.news and we'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to the heartland. We're taking a little trip out to Indiana in spirit. Okay. In spirit. To talk about redistricting and what that could look like. All right. So stop on by tomorrow at noon. I'll see you guys later. Peace.